Prairie Yard and Garden is a production of the University of Minnesota Morris in cooperation with Pioneer Public Television. Closed captioning is provided by Mark and Margaret Yakel-Julien in honor of Shalom Hill Farm, a nonprofit rural education retreat center in a beautiful prairie setting near Windham in southwestern Minnesota. Shalom Hill Farm, shalomhill.org.
Many backyard gardeners find unique ways to enrich their gardening experience. Some individuals grow exotic plants, while others look for unique ways to display and grow their flowers and vegetables. Join me on Prairie Yard and Garden as we look at how one family has transformed a farmstead to enhance their gardening experience. Today we're at a unique farmstead. It's been transformed with a number of beautiful gardens, both vegetable and flower. My guest today is Don Carlquist, and welcome to the Prairie Yard and Garden Show, Don.
Thank you, Larry.
And what made you become attracted to this particular farmstead?
Well, we had an opportunity a few years back, my wife and I, to purchase this. We had owned some property across the road on Lake Aldridge, and when this became available, we jumped at the chance to have it. There's a very unique building site with 80 acres here and some sloughs and woods combination, and we just thought it had great potential for what we wanted to do, and we wanted to get out of the city and out into the country.
And have you done anything with that 80 acres, or is that kind of rented out and you're just concentrating on the farm site?
Well, we do have 50-some acres that are tillable, and the rest is sloughs and wetlands, and we have I've planted about 1,500 trees since we've been out here, and so we're trying to add things for wildlife as we go. But mainly it's been rented out for cropland. And
the farmstead, what intrigued you when you were looking at this and purchasing it?
Well, my wife fell in love with the house. It's a 1920s farmhouse with the old woodwork inside that's real nice, and so we've been refurbishing that, and then we've moved to the yard here and built a bunch of rock gardens and, kind of redone some of the buildings, added some fencing, and just kind of putting our own little touch on it.
And where did you start?
Well, that's a good question. I mean, we had lots of places to start. We started with some of the flower gardens because there really wasn't a lot of flowers out here when we bought it. We were fortunate that the hoop house was here with a lot of the raised beds and some of those unique things, but we just kind of added, a little bit of color that wasn't out here before.
You talked about the hoop house and raised beds. What's the story behind that?
Well, those were here, like I said, when we purchased it. The previous owner, Maury Worth, had put up the hoop house, and there's 20 raised beds that are on the property, and also some of the other features that are considered raised beds, which are a couple of old boats that are filled with dirt. But the raised beds themselves are 2 foot high, some are 5 foot across, some are 6, filled with clay in the bottom, and then, the rest with dirt from, the surrounding fields. And they were here, which was really a unique thing, and it's been beautiful for gardening. We really love them.
Well, Don, I see a few different flower beds here. Tell me about how you got started in that process.
Well, mainly we started in the front yard, did some rock gardens out there, and then we kind of moved to the back area. And this is a brand new bed that we're by here that we did this spring. We've kind of added maybe 2-3 beds a year, and mainly started out doing rock gardens because we had an endless supply of rocks and plenty of dirt out here, so that's where we kind of started. And then we've moved on now and have done a couple of native flower beds, which have both native grasses and native flowers that have worked out real nice, because it seems like once you have those done, then there's not as much to maintain with those, and so we're kind of moving on into that area now.
Did you have anybody help you put together those native areas, or is that
Well,
your creative ideas?
No, we went to a seminar in Alexandria that was sponsored by the extension agency that was put on by Glacier Ridge growers out of Glenwood, and this was in January or February of probably 2010, and it was about 30 below that night. Us and about 6 other people were there, but they put on a great demonstration of things that you could do with native flowers and grasses, and then we just kind of taken it from there.
And I also see that you've got some apple trees planted. Are you planting a little orchard?
Again, I took a class, I think it might have been your class up at Underwood, in fact, on apple trees, and at one of the garden days up there. And we had 2 apple trees on the property, and I guess we've added another probably 20 or 25, and a few different varieties. And I'm not sure what we're going to do with them all when they start producing, but they look good right now.
Well, Don, I'm really interested in those raised beds over by the hoop house. Can we go take a look at those?
Absolutely.
Well, Don, this is a very unique gardening opportunity here with the raised beds.
We love it. I think it'll extend our career a long time, not having to bend down so much to do it. But like I said before, these were on the farm when we purchased it. The previous owner, Maury Worth, had scoured the countryside and found all kinds of old water tanks and a cedar silo that he had cut down, and cut them all down to 2-foot lengths, banded them, and some of them are 5 foot across, some are 6 foot across, so it just makes it very nice for bending and not having to reach so far, and easy weeding that way.
And I assume they're all redwood or cedar or something that can take the moisture? Yeah,
the oldest ones, I guess, he said, are even up to 100 years old, and some of them are the redwood ones, and then some of the more recent ones are cedar. But yeah, they're either redwood or cedar, and the redwood ones seem like they last a little bit longer, but these have been here a long time, and as you can see, they're still in really good shape.
And they're just a simple little band, kind of like a silo hoop on some of them?
Yep, some you have those old metal silo hoops, and some are just regular bands put on. Seems like they hold it just fine. The drainage works good out of them. If we get those 5-inch rains like we've had, they don't overflow. It seems to seep out quite well, and they do hold the moisture well too, with a little bit of clay that's in the bottom.
I was going to ask about what is the mixture here. Is it got any soil mix in it, or is it just strictly field?
It's mostly field soil. We do add a small amount, maybe of 10-10-10 in the spring, but very little. What we like to do mostly is compost it. We'll take cucumbers or tomatoes or onions that we've peeled, and apple cores, anything like that, and just bury it into the beds and let that rot and mature that way. And we do, anytime it rains, try to collect worms and stuff, and I put worms in the beds, and that was an idea that Maury had told me about, and it's worked great.
And not much of a weed problem?
Very little. I mean, the ones that do come up, they're easy to get at and get them out. The soil stays nice and loose, so it doesn't compact in it. So yeah, no, very little.
And what crops are you growing currently?
Well, in here we've got a couple beds there with tomatoes. We do have some onions and peppers, 2 beds of potatoes, some broccoli, beets, carrots, just about anything that you can think of we do. And in some of the outdoor ones we have sweet potatoes in there and celery. So, just about anything that you can think of, we try it.
And is there any one particular crop that seems to do better than others?
Well, tomatoes really do well in here. Usually we just put one plant in a 6-foot or 5-foot bed, and it pretty much fills up the whole bed. So tomatoes really seem to do well in it. And I think, we get a good start with it early, because it seems like these beds will warm up quicker, since they're off the ground. And so normally we can get stuff planted, first part of May, middle of May. And if we put the top on the hoop house, and sometimes we plant in April, but even without the top, we plant a little bit earlier than most, I think.
Sure. You talk about the hoop house, that must be a chore.
It can be. It's a 40-foot length, and it's all one piece, so you got to make sure you either play the wind right or find a real calm day. So, and have lots of help. Yeah, my wife and I tried it; it didn't go so well.
Yeah, I can imagine, especially in April when there's very few calm days.
Yes, but we've gotten smarter and got more help when we do that. So,
and adding the plastic sheeting over the top, Is that giving you a few more degrees in here so you don't have to worry about frost quite as
Well, it
much?
does, but since it's not completely airtight and we don't heat it, you have to kind of watch it, if the temperatures do get down there where, they're going to get cold. But, on an April day, if the sun is out, you'll get 80 degrees in there pretty easily, so you do get that jump. But then you do have to watch the cool nights.
Do you have any different kind of insect problems with these?
We haven't had too much insect problems. We do still have, with the cabbage or the broccoli, you still have, some bugs that you got to, powder the plants with. But other than that, we haven't had too much. And we haven't, with the critters around too, they can't reach up in here, so that kind of helps too.
Well, and probably enclosed, the deer don't get in here.
And actually, we haven't had any deer problem. I'm knock on wood, but I guess, they kind of leave our stuff alone for some reason. I guess maybe there's better stuff out in the fields, but they haven't had too much of a problem. I've had more problems with raccoon than deer.
Oh, what did the raccoon do?
Well, they just like to knock over the bird feeders and the potted plants and things like that. So.
I thought maybe they had a favorite vegetable.
No, only if we do sweet corn.
Oh, yeah. And that's probably one thing you haven't tried.
I did that one time out in the field, and that was it. They got it all, so I thought, I'm not doing that anymore.
Well, as you progress through the season, do you do a little succession planting? In other words, the lettuce is probably pretty well done here in mid-July, but some people would start a new batch for fall harvest.
We do on some things. We'll plant again, maybe lettuce and spinach again in August or first part of September, and if we get a nice fall, we'll get a decent crop again. But other than that, we kind of just get them cleaned up and get them ready for the next year. But we do a little bit of lettuce because we like to have that year-round.
Sure. What about fruit, like strawberries? Have you tried them?
I do have a strawberry patch just around the corner here.
But not in the raised beds?
Not in the raised beds, no. And I do, have raspberries out and back too, but I haven't done any of that type of thing in the raised beds. I just have kept that on the ground. So.
Sure. Well, what about your potatoes here? Do they get super big?
They do get pretty nice. We've had some russets that, get pretty good size, so they've turned out really well. And potatoes seem like they do really well in here for some reason. And like the red Pontiacs there, they've been ready now for a couple of weeks, and so we've been having those. And the onions really get big in these raised beds for some reason. And we used to have Walla Wallas that would get bigger than softballs, But
I wonder what's causing that.
I don't know. It's just
the loose soil, and they got the ability to expand.
I think so. We don't plant them real close. Give them a lot of room, and they get lots of good rainwater. We do all of our watering with these beds in a system that we collect off the barn. That was here too. There was a tank from the old Brandon Fisheries that holds about 650, 700 gallons of water, and so we use that for all of our watering of the raised beds. So I think, again, that helps when you're putting warm water on them. I think it makes a big difference.
So this year, with all the rain we've had, that tank's probably been overflowing and really didn't need it for the beds.
Haven't had to use it very much. There's a couple of times there, but other than that, it's been full all the time. So.
And that system is just rain gutters running it directly into the tank?
Correct. Just off of the lean-to, off of the barn, and so all the water that's coming off the one side of the barn onto the lean-to comes into those tanks. So we're drawing a big area there, so it doesn't take long to fill it up.
Exactly. Well, one of the other things that would intrigue me is the size of the vegetables. I can certainly see the onions are already by end of July here being 3 inches across, which is fabulous for this time of year. What other vegetables just grow super big?
Well, like the beets, if we leave the beets in for a long period of time, they'll get like a sugar beet. I mean, they get bigger than you want to eat. They get a little woody, but even right now, there's, into that size range. And so they do really well. Carrots, they'll get, if you put in the long taper ones, they'll, some will get foot long, and lettuce too will really take off and keeps coming back. We've had probably 4 crops on the lettuce. The lettuce does really well in it. So anything that, like the onions too, where they're above ground like that, they just seem like they really take off. So anything with the roots like that.
Yeah, and I saw in another area that you were growing sweet potatoes. What's your experience there?
We've done those over the years. We've had real good success with them. They get nice and big. The only problem is they don't store real well. They're good for about a month maybe. So, might as well, harvest them as late as you can and eat them up right away. But they do get real nice, and actually the celery that we've got growing too is, the stalks get real nice and big. So we're pretty fortunate to have real good soil.
So you're doing a little experimenting and growing some of those exotics?
Try a few different things, yeah, and some work, some don't. But for the most part, the things that we've tried have done pretty well.
How about rutabagas?
I do those out in the back where we have cucumbers and squash and that type of thing back there, and the rutabagas have done okay back there. I don't know if it's quite sandy enough for them, but I know they grow really well north of here, up in the sand country.
Sure,
but,
exactly.
But we did grow some.
Well, Don, I see over here you got some marigolds growing in the tub. What's the story on that?
Well, we put those around the tomato plants. It's kind of my wife's idea. She actually likes to add a little color to the hoop house with the other accessories that we have here too. But she thinks it keeps the bugs off the tomatoes, and I guess I haven't seen any on there, so I'll have to agree with her.
Oh, I see. Yes, that's good. And the tomatoes, typically when we grow them in our gardens, we get septoria leaf spot that just devastates them. Have you had that problem?
Haven't had that problem, and for whatever reason, I'm not sure. It might be that we have pretty good drainage in the bed, so there's no water standing in there. I'm not sure if that's the reasoning, but.
Well, that would be one less headache, I can tell you.
Yeah, it does make it nice. We don't have to worry about that, and like I said, we haven't had any problems with the tomatoes, and we've always had pretty good crop of them. So we're hoping that's what's doing it.
Well, as I look out beyond the hoop house, I see a couple of other unique structures that you've put together and put some plants in. Give me a little description of that.
Those were also here when the hoop house was built, and there's 2 boats out there that are filled in with dirt, just like the raised beds are, and we treat those just like we do these.
Fishing was really bad?
Yeah, I guess so. And like I said, I should put my golf clubs in there too, because I don't have time for that either. The one house, or the one boat, has peppers and onions in it. The other one is an herb bed, I guess. And so we have thyme and basil and all those types of oregano and all those, and they do really well in there. Those drain out real well too and heat up fast, so those crops do well in there also. And some of the other stuff is more ornamental, the Swiss chard and the other things that are in the cow tanks there. So,
well, as our viewers are watching this, they would probably find it difficult to find these old water tanks at this point, but stock tanks are certainly around, and you find them just as effective as these wooden?
Yeah, I think they work just as well. I mean, they're not quite as nice looking and the appearance that these have, but I think they serve the same purpose. They're basically the same height. You fill them with the same composition of materials, and things grow in there just as well. And they're at pretty much any farm auction you go to, you can find those. So. And
you'd want the ones that are rusted out on the bottom?
Well, or that, or put holes in them. I buy these things at auctions that are pretty good, like wash tubs and things like that we do flowers in and come home and pound holes in them. It doesn't make sense, but that's what we do. So.
Okay. Yeah, you got to have a drainage system. Or
absolutely. Really otherwise, they'll drown out or flood out. So everything drains pretty well out of those.
And I see you got a little tool shed on the far end by the other open tub areas.
That's my wife's potting shed. That's actually the outhouse that used to be on the property here. It's extremely heavy. It's made out of oak that was cut from the woods around here. But so she uses that for her potting shed and tools and things like that, and works out great.
Well, that's a real unique use of an old outhouse.
Yes, absolutely, and it does serve the purpose.
Don, you mentioned earlier that you had some native plantings. Can we go take a look at
absolutely.
that? Absolutely.
I have a question. What are some good tips for pruning trees?
I have a 5-step pruning process that I go through and that I've really emphasized with staff and volunteers here at the Minnesota Landscape Arboretum as far as pruning trees and shrubs for that matter. Sanitation is number 1, structural pruning, framing, clearance, and balance. Sanitation is the removal of dead material, crossing branches, rubbing branches, etc. Structural pruning is the removal of branches with very narrow branch angles early on in the growth of that tree, especially a large shade tree. Framing is just like if you're framing up a house, or think of frames on a ladder. You have the branches spaced out, and you want the branches spaced out both vertically as well as radially around the trunk of the tree. Generally speaking, we're talking about a central leader tree here. Clearance work is pretty obvious, either for vehicular traffic, pedestrian traffic, mowing, whatever the consideration. Clearance work is essential in part of the pruning. And then balance is the issue of texture in the plant. The texture of plants are very important aesthetically, and evening out that texture is very important. So using the 1/3 rule of cutting back to something at least 1/3 the size of the branch you're removing, making thinning cuts, and only removing about 1/3, you can utilize a little bit of that balancing to even out the texture and density of the plant overall. One last thing is timing. You don't want to be pruning on trees or shrubs when they're just leafing out in the springtime or when they're going into dormancy in the fall. Otherwise, without any disease or insect considerations, you can go ahead and prune for any of those 5 things during the middle of the summer, or it's really best during the dormant season.
Ask the Arboretum Experts has been brought to you by the Minnesota Landscape Arboretum in Chanhassen, dedicated to enriching lives through the appreciation and knowledge of plants.
Well, Don, this looks like a beautiful native planting. How did you get this one started?
Well, we did this one a year ago, so this is actually just its second growing season now. This was, it was kind of a waste area where when they were farming, it was an area where they'd drive through to get their equipment to the sheds, and so it was just kind of a waste area, and it couldn't get grass to grow here, so I did haul in some dirt out of the fields, and then ended up getting some plugs and just going from there and building it gradually, and so this is just on the second growing season, and it's coming along real nice.
Well, I would say so. Most of these native things take 2, 3, 4 years before you get this amount of color.
Well, I think it'll just continue to get better and better. At the beginning, we did weed it and around the plugs to try to keep the weeds down, and now we've just kind of let it go on. And now next spring we'll just burn it off, and everything should come back again real nice and even better. It should just continue to get better and better.
Now, when you established this, did you round up the whole area or till it all up and then start your plugs?
I did round up. There wasn't even that much to round up. It was basically sand and clay here and dirt, but I did do round up on it. Then we did haul in, the dirt from the field, and I didn't let that come up and round up that. That's probably where some of our weeds did come in. But so it's been a work in progress as far as trying to keep the weeds out. But now that it's gotten thick, it's kind of choking out the weeds.
Well, I would expect that we'd see a fair number of birds coming in here and feeding.
Well, my wife likes to put bird houses in all the beds and have poles, for the birds. And we did have bluebirds that did nest in here. I think they're back again now for a second round. As you can see, the bees are buzzing around, so the bees love the wild bergamot and the mandara. Mm-hmm. And the butterflies are just now starting to show up too. So we've had quite a few of the monarchs, and that's the whole reasoning behind it is we're trying to do some things for the wildlife and not have to maintain it so much, and just kind of have the beauty but not have to be out here on our hands and knees and weeding all the time.
Well, I would imagine that anybody drives by your place slows down and takes a long look at this. We do get
a few gawkers, and that's great. We we like to show off our things, and this is a real easy one to see from the road. We're only 20, 30 feet from the road here, so it does catch a lot of attention, especially with all the yellow. And a few of the other colors are starting to show up now, and it kind of starts out in the spring with a few of the prairie smoke, and some of the early ones are out, and then as the season goes on, we gradually get more and more color.
What's your favorite flower that you have planted here?
Oh, I guess I kind of like the hoary vermilion, the purple ones there that come up. They get real nice, and the black-eyed Susans are very pretty too, and the coneflowers, and then as you get more towards fall, the asters start really to bloom, and they get real tall, and they stick out nice too. So that as far as the grasses, I really like the prairie smoke in the spring. It really does look like smoke coming off of the plant. And then the Indian paintbrush is very nice also.
Good, I'd give you some fall color.
Yes, absolutely. And with the asters and some of the other ones that come out in the fall, it kind of gradually builds, and we do still have some color left for fall.
Well, and I see a little blue stem in there. That's one of my favorites, is the fall gets that rust.
Yep, it's very pretty. There's big blue stem, there's some little blue stem. Another one in there for grasses that gets really nice is the Indian grass. That has a very nice plume on it in the fall and turns a very nice color too. So yeah, the grasses really come more alive in the fall.
To maintain it, do you think burning will be the ideal thing to do?
That's what I'm planning on doing this year. The first year wasn't quite this thick, so I don't know if it would have burned off that well. I just basically went through and cut everything off and had a few trailer loads of left over from that. But I think this year I'm going to try to burn it, and they say that kind of regenerates it even better. I'll probably have to take the birdhouses out so they don't burn down.
Well, birdhouses, good thing you got a steel shed behind.
Yes.
That does help. And what are we facing, south?
This is north. We're facing north, so the garden will face the south, so it gets sun all day long here. So that was another one of the reasons why we decided to go with that here. And it seems like the natives really do well with the sun. And plus, it's pretty dry here, and they'll do well if it doesn't rain. And I don't water this, so but we've had plenty of rain the way it is.
Have you seen any trees coming up in there yet?
No trees, but every once in a while we'll get a few of them big thistles that want to pop up, and we do try to take care of all of that when we do see those. But as far as any general weeding, we don't do much of that.
Well, it looks very nice. And do you plan on expanding this concept around the farm?
Well, we did one other one now this spring that we just started, so that one's just getting started, and so that's on its first few months of growth, and probably not quite to this size. We're going to do it in little smaller chunks, but I kind of like the no maintenance look.
Well, and all of us are getting busier and busier, or older and older. I don't know which is more important, and have less time to get out on our hands and knees.
Well, I think we found out that we've taken on a lot, and if we can do a few things that don't have quite as much maintenance, it'll prolong our gardening career a little bit here too.
Exactly. Well, Don, you have a very unique farmstead here that you've done wonders with. It's a pleasure to drive by and see the flowers and the native flowers and the other things that you've done here. Great job.
Thank you. We appreciate it. My wife and I have worked real hard at it, and it's nice to see that other people are enjoying it too. So thank you for coming.
Closed captioning is provided by Mark and Margaret Yackel-Julien in honor of Shalom Hill Farm, a nonprofit rural education retreat center in a beautiful prairie setting near Windham in southwestern Minnesota. Shalom Hill Farm, shalomhill.org.